Hello there, and a huge welcome to today's episode of Gina Gardiner and Friends. This is another of the episodes where I am the one who's speaking to you, and I'm going to share with you my perspective, what I've learned, and also what I've learned from working with many, many clients over the years. I want to mention the C word, and I hesitate to do that when it's still October. I'm talking about Christmas. But ultimately, it could be Hanukkah or it could be Eid or Ramadan or any of the big events where families get together. Because we put huge pressure on ourselves if we are hosting those events for it to be perfect. And often it's anything but. So, I want to share with you some tips and strategies, some approaches that can help you get the best out of the holiday in a way that doesn't leave you completely like a limp rag afterwards. And I've loosely based it on the carol, if you like, the 12 Days of Christmas. But remember, it's any time you get together with family and friends if you're the host. Because, well, so many people that I know want to do a great job, want everybody to enjoy themselves, but they start to dread the holiday, having to put up with Auntie Maud or Uncle Ted, or knowing that one of the family members is going to drink too much and misbehave. Whatever it is, whatever your approach, whatever the celebration, there are ways that you can make it easier. And so I'm going to talk about Christmas, but you substitute Christmas for any family event, any family holiday that you celebrate. And if you're listening to America, then in a few days' time, it'll be Thanksgiving, an opportunity to give thanks, to be grateful, to share, to be kind. Well, I wonder how many families at the end of Thanksgiving just heave a huge sigh of relief that it's over. If that's not the case, then great. I just wish you, all of you, a happy holiday, whatever that holiday is. And you might say to me, why am I talking about this so early? I mean, I'm recording this at the end of October to go out to you in early November. Well, because so much of this is about your mindset and about your preparation. Now, I have to be really honest. I love Christmas, but I spend Christmas with three humbuggers. You know, Charles Dickens had a character in the Christmas Carol who, whenever Christmas was mentioned, he would go, bah, humbug, because he didn't like Christmas. He didn't see the joy of Christmas. Now, my sister and her husband and my aunt, who I spend Christmas with, aren't that bad. They just pull a face every time you talk about Christmas. And when we get there, they do enjoy it, but they don't like the run up to Christmas. And I want you to think about, how do you feel? And if you're listening to this and you're the host, then it's about how you can prepare for that. But it's just as important if you're a family member or you're a guest, because I want you to start thinking about the impact of your behavior when you actually turn up as guest, or as a family member when your mum, your dad, or both of them, or whoever it is who organises Christmas, are run ragged trying to make it special. So think about it, because you all have a responsibility to remember how you think, how you behave, how you speak, what you do, what you don't do. So this is the sort of thing that you can go back and listen to the replay. If you've got a pen or a pencil and paper, then you can jot down some notes if you want to. But ultimately, this is about, how do you take control of a situation in a joyous way? After all, if you look at the spirit of all of these holidays, it is about sharing, getting together, enjoying relationships. But of course, we all know that relationships aren't necessarily as positive or as loving as we would like them to be. So, I want to share with you the essential steps that I've used and I've used with clients that I used to share with the parents when I was a principal or head teacher. And I want you to think about, when you consider the holiday, whatever that might be, what's your first feeling before you filter it out? Is it, oh, great, it's going to happen. I'm going to see everybody. I'm so looking forward to it. Or is that tinged with a, but how am I going to afford it? How am I going to manage? Or at the other end of the spectrum, oh God, here we go again. It's Christmas, it's whatever. And I've got to manage my way through it. So, what is it for you? Is it a season of goodwill to men, a time of all out abundance and indulgence? Are you dreading having the stepchildren? These days, there are so many mixed families, or the mother in law, or whoever it may be. Because however you look forward to things colours the experience that you're going to have. So, whether that's any of those holidays, think about, are you creating a pressure cooker where the disappointments just pile up year on year, and each year you dread it a bit more? Or does it live up to the fairy tale? Or it's a bit of a mixed bag, a bit of a curate's egg, that it's good and bad in part. The cost of Christmas, particularly in this financial situation that many families find themselves in, where you're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. You've got far more outgoings than you have got incomings, and the budget seems impossible. I want you to think about that, because if you start to engage with this from an absolute pace of lack and it's impossible, or I'm going to get into debt, then you're going to do things in a very different way. And of course, there's all the food shopping and catering, and the research shows that so much food waste happens at Christmas. And what I've learned over the years is I don't put weight on over Christmas. I put weight on in January when I'm eating up all of the sweets and chocolates and biscuits and cake and mince pies, some of which I've bought or made, and some of which people have given to me. So I want you to think about not only creating a brilliant day, but what do you need? And I can remember, talking to parents who spent the whole of the next year trying to pay back the loans, the credit cards, because they had spent so much money. And then just as they were beginning to get on top of it, it was Christmas again. So have a think about your budget, because that can make a real difference. Now, I know from talking to many people, clients and friends and so on, that they often not quite sure who's turning up for the holiday, because people have not been pretty forthcoming in saying whether they're coming or not, or how long they're coming from. Or you have a situation, I was talking actually to my hairdresser the other day, and she is part of a blended family, and she couldn't get her ex-husband to actually decide, was he going to pick the children up for Christmas Day, Boxing Day? Not only did she not know, but the children, who were 10 and 14, I think, were really wrong-footed, because they weren't sure, and that insecurity, that not knowing, is so difficult. And I recognise that you don't want to start a family row, because that starts the holiday off really badly. But I think very often what we do is we say nothing and just get more and more frustrated, rather than saying, look, I'm shopping in advance to spread the load. I'm in the UK, we can have our food delivered, but you have to book your slots early. So I'm going to book my slot. I need to know, are you coming? When are you coming? I need to plan the meals. Be really helpful. Please, could you let me know by? Don't just let me know, give them a date. Say, I've got to book my food order by, can you let me know by midnight the day before? State what you want, and if you haven't heard, then remind them. And rather than getting frustrated about it, imagine it's a game of snakes and ladders. So for everyone that answers on time with the information you need in its entirety, that's a ladder. If they don't answer, or they answer in an incomplete way, that's a snake. And just like the game of snakes and ladders, you don't give up simply because you've gone down a snake. You simply carry on the game. And if you can see it in that way, rather than, oh God, that person hasn't let me know again, and then sending off a rude note or having a conversation with them where your irritation and frustration shines through, you're going to get a better result. It's not magic. I can't guarantee it. All I know is that for myself and for others that I've worked with, for friends, it does make it easier. Now, I know that we want Christmas to be great or whichever holiday. And so it's no wonder that people are overwhelmed because they put such huge expectations on themselves. It's got to be perfect. And we'll often have a situation where all the good china and the good silver and the good glasses have to come out and they all have to be washed because they've been in the cupboard since last Christmas. And we put more and more pressure on ourselves. Incidentally, I think use the good stuff all the time because so often it's hidden in a cupboard and it doesn't see the light of day. My rule is if it goes in the dishwasher, I use it. If it doesn't, well, a lot of that stuff I've actually got rid of because I don't want to stand at the sink hand washing. But that's up to you. Planning for a successful Christmas. Now, I'm going to talk about food in a number of ways. But if you imagine the old saying, prepare to fail or fail to prepare, that's a really good one. And I think that good planning is essential to any event, whatever that event may be, whether it's a holiday or a wedding. I mean, these rules apply just as much for weddings as they do for anything else. What I would suggest you do is give yourself some quiet time and think about the pressure points from previous years. What are the things that have got on your wick and you've really, really been cross about? And then decide, how can I do this differently? And I'm going to share 7 simple things around the food that can take the pain out of planning, catering for Christmas. So I believe it's so much easier to plan, particularly if you do it well in advance. Think about how you can make small changes to make things easier. I would say the first rule of thumb, you do not have to be a slave in order to make a fabulous Christmas for everyone. There are simple things that you can do to make things easier. Please don't make yourself a martyr to the food. Christmas dinner is essentially a roast dinner with knobs on. It is, I think, a roast dinner, pretty much simple. Now, I know in America there may be different traditions, but in the UK, we like nice, crunchy, crispy roast potatoes. And I know many families that I know of in the US, they like mashed potato or mashed jam or whatever. Start your order now. And if you're going to have a delivery, get in there. Don't wait until the week before Christmas to do it when all the deliveries have gone and you've got to go round the shops. I happen to like doing the shopping and choosing what I'm going to take and choosing long shelf lives so that it lasts longer. Create your shopping list now. And on that list, what are the things that you can freeze? What are the things that are store cupboard items? And just leave the fresh stuff till the last minute. And that also helps you spread the load over 2 wage packets. Do have the conversation. I've already talked about having a conversation about who's coming and going. So because things have been such in the past, please don't make assumptions. So often we think, well, they've always come to us or we've always gone to them. Please check and make sure that you know how many people are coming. So what day of the week does Christmas fall on? In the UK, we have 2 bank holidays, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, although some shops are open on Boxing Day. If you've got a weekend close, rather than trying to put it all in one. And I was speaking to one client who actually saw 5 different sets of people on the Christmas before when we've been talking about it, because she'd seen her own parents, the in-laws, her ex-husband had the children part of the day, so she wanted to see them open their presents, so she'd gone to those. She'd got an aged aunt in a home who wasn't well enough to come, and she was just run ragged. Christmas is just a day, and actually, if you live in certain parts of the world, Christmas Day isn't on the 25th of December, it's on the 6th or the 7th of January. So if you have a weekend near, or even if you don't, spread it out and say to people, We're going to have Christmas with you, but we're going to have it on the Saturday or the Sunday before or after Christmas. But let people know early. Talk about these things and just say, look, we spent the whole of the car of Christmas in the car. It was difficult. We didn't have a good visit with anybody. We want to change that. And when people make a face, say we're going to rotate when we do those in the future. So your turn is the Saturday before Christmas this year, but it'll be Christmas Day next year. So you start to take control of that. Be honest, not brutal. I can't bear the thought of you all coming at one time, or I can't be. But talk to people about how it is and say, look, I'd love to be able to clone myself and be in everybody's place at the same time, but I can't. Be careful. We've already talked on one of the other shows. No edge, no energy, no whine to your voice. State what you want to happen and create an opportunity for the person that you're talking to have their say. Stay calm. If you fight fire with fire, you get a bigger fire, or you burn a bridge and it's a long walk round. Many people don't like change. And so having these conversations as early as possible is really important, because you don't want to make it so late that they can't make alternative plans. No one wants to start the new year with a huge debt hanging over their heads. And I know that the pressure, particularly from children, can be enormous because they want very expensive electronic items, or they've got the idea from social media that it's got to be designer. The lists often get longer, and I think many children get so many presents that they can't actually appreciate or enjoy them. All they're doing is ripping the paper off, throwing it away, and going on to the next present. And so part of this is about budgeting, and part of this may be about spreading the presents out so that they can be enjoyed. I think it's easy to get caught up with the need to spend. And children often make it a competition. My friend's getting this, I want that. The element of surprise seems to have gone for many children. They're given a catalogue and told, choose what you want out of here. I do think that it's important to make it about the present and not about the cost of the present. The children will pressurise you. But I found in my 20 years of running a school that a month later, most of the presents are actually in the cupboard not being used. Their first flush of enthusiasm, because everybody was going to have it, it just disappears. I would say to you that one of the things you can do it early, is to have a conversation with your children and talk to them about the fact that, there's not a lot of money, but what you'd like to do, perhaps instead of presents, is to arrange to do a family outing, go and see the theatre in the UK, go to the pantomime, having a day out a little bit later. And I know deferred gratification is quite difficult for children, but if you give them the job of researching it, of finding, which thing they want to do, that can really be something. Not only is it educational, but the kids can enjoy that and they can have the satisfaction of knowing that. And I would say to you, engage them in Christmas, helping to dress the tree, making things. Some of the greatest Christmas have been when the rule has been we all make our presents, or you put a limit to how much you're going to spend, or you draw out one person that you're going to buy for. But ultimately, it's up to you as a family to decide how you're going to manage it. And I recognize that you want the best for your child, and it may be very tempting to put it on the old plastic. But remember the compound interest. Remember it needs to be paid back, and it's not easy, and who knows what's going to happen. Plan your Christmas day, and rather than it all being about presents, go for a muddy walk, play family games. They don't have to cost much. You can get them off the internet or from the charity or thrift shop. But please engage with your children and, also your parents or your friends about what is reasonable. And if you, even with small children, if you say, Mummy can't or Daddy can't afford this, We love you very much and we want, something to be great at Christmas. But we just need to warn you, we can't afford those things, but we're going to look to how we can make Christmas special. Now, it's really interesting how you measure what a successful Christmas is and how do you measure happiness. In the run up to Christmas, managing expectations around presents. But the token presents that you make can be a great way of showing people that you really care without costing. And some of the things that you can do is to do some cooking. Bake some biscuits and put them in little plastic bags with a ribbon, make some sweeties, pickle some onions, but anything which demonstrates that you care. So I've been in enjoyed Christmas where we've said to people, right, this is the budget, and you've got to be as ingenious as you can. That budget could be as little as $5, £5. And you might argue, well, what can you get for that money? You go into the thrift shop or go onto one of the online things or look in, we have websites where you can, many people will put things that they no longer want. But it's the thought and the ingenuity, and then giving a prize for the present that people think shows the most thought. It could be that doing a secret Santa where everybody picks out a name from the hat and again put a value on the secret Santa. Now, you can use the news to help explain this to children, particularly if they are, over 8 years in age. And if you've got teenagers, they're not stupid. But I think you have to have a whole culture of honesty. Now, planning a successful Christmas, in my opinion, is all about being heard. And I'm suggesting that you make it all about you. Now, what do I mean by that? It doesn't mean that you do exactly what you want and blow everybody else. But it is about you taking radical responsibility for the sort of Christmas that you have. Many people expect others to be a mind reader. Oh, it's so inefficient. If you're bashing about in the kitchen and everybody else is in the sitting room having a lovely time, drinking a glass of something or other, and you are the one who's peeling all the vegetables, laying the table, well, it's time for you to say something. I'd say before Christmas, right, Christmas dinner requires all of these jobs doing. Everybody's going to do something towards it. So what are you going to do? And get them to identify, well, I'll lay the table or I'll peel the sprouts. I'll talk a bit more about food preparation because there's so many really clever hacks that you can engage with that mean you haven't got to do it on Christmas Day. And anything that you can do prior to the celebration, whatever that celebration may be, really is sensible. Are you someone who carries on blithely and feels aggrieved because you're the one that gets dumped on? You've got a big D on your forehead saying doormat, when everybody else is blissfully unaware that that's not how it needs to be because you're feeling put upon, tired, and frustrated. Mind reading, I believe, is highly overrated, as I say, and yet we all use it at times, some more than others. But if you want something to do with it, don't allude to it. Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I'm so busy. Say to someone, look, there's a lot to do. I need you to help me. Please, will you do this? Neutral voice, I'm modeling it for you, and actually ask them to do it. If they turn around and say no, then have the conversation with them, which is, you want to enjoy Christmas? Well, it's for everybody. So let's look at what's fair and what the consequences are of you not helping. And so if you help, that means that everybody could enjoy Christmas and be in a good mood. If you refuse to help, well, then maybe Father Christmas is actually not going to be as ready to help you. Or I'm going to be in a bad mood over the Christmas, and it's just not on. I would say having a culture in your family where people help is something that you should start far, far in advance of Christmas. So it becomes an accepted thing that everybody does. Please don't bring baggage to the conversation. New conversation. Last Christmas, you were a pain, you did nothing, you were lazy, not helpful. This Christmas, I'd like this Christmas to be one we can all enjoy. Nagging is just as unsuccessful as mind reading as a form of communication. And this is all of these things are true not just for the holidays. The problem with nagging, particularly if you're a woman, you're a mum, is that your voice is very often at the same tone and cadence level as your children. And so it just becomes white noise. Don't try and talk to them while they're watching their favourite TV programme or your husband is watching the finals of the football, golf, or whatever. Choose a time and say, look, I need to talk to you and I need you to listen to me because this is so important to me and it's going to make a difference. I really urge you to do that. And to do that now, don't nag, people switch off. It's white noise. This is true when you're talking to children, partners, colleagues, bosses, parents, whoever. This is lessons for life. The problem when nobody listens to what's being said because it's just that white noise nagging is the person who's the nagger feels unheard. The nagging gets worse and the cycle becomes more and more toxic. So communicate effectively in a neutral voice. So let's think about food for thought, forward thinking. Now, when it comes to food preparation, Christmas can make a huge difference to your stress levels. So my top tips for enjoying a great Christmas feast without driving yourself mad. And I'm going to talk about a couple of these things before the break, and I'm going to carry on after the break. I happen to love baking. Now, one of my problems is, you know, if you've listened to my story, is although I can walk now, I still do use a wheelchair and I get very, very tired just standing. And so what I do is I pace myself. I want to make things. And so I start early in the Christmas pudding, Christmas cake if you're going to make it. Although these days I just buy a small piece because I don't want to be eating it all the way through January and putting on weight. Mince pies, whatever it is that you create, and it'll be your family favorites. I'm just sharing mine. Do it in advance, freeze where you can, if you've got the freezer space, so that you do as little on the day or near the day. Puddings and Christmas cake will keep actually for up to a year if they're well wrapped and they're stored in the right place. If you've got limited freezer space, then freeze the pastry rather than the pies because it'll take less space and then you can just roll it out on the day. Interestingly, once it's been frozen, it's often easier to manage. Don't be a slave. And I know that buying ready prepared things is more expensive, but this is a balancing act. And, you know, setting aside what it's going to cost against what it's going to cost you in time and energy, only you can make that decision. There's a huge range available, and it's worth looking around to suit your pocket wherever you can, to be mindful of getting the best value and the best quality you can for the money that you can afford. Think about how much did you have left over last year and buy strategically. Yes, you want some sweeties. Yes, you want some biscuits. Yes, you want and. But you don't need to be feeding the 5,000. Remember that the shops are closed for one day or 2 days if in the UK, certain shops. But what's really interesting is if you buy enough for Christmas Day and Boxing Day and you want more, very often the very things that were so expensive before Christmas are hugely reduced in those few days after Christmas. So you're not going to go hungry. If you are on a huge budget, if you are really struggling, then move Christmas Day 3 or 4 days later, and then you can go and buy your turkey and all the trimmings from the supermarket at hugely reduced prices. And you can have Christmas on a budget, but have the Christmas that you want. You just move the days. And remember that the date of Christmas over the years, over the centuries, has been moved. And in some places, they celebrate Christmas on Epiphany, the 6th and 7th of January. Now, there are certain things, if you've got plenty of freezer space, and I'm just about to start running my freezer down, so I've got plenty of freezer space. Roast potatoes, you can do your own, and they're much cheaper than buying, if that's what you want to do. Parboil them in plenty of hot, salty water. So buy your potatoes, cut them into good sized chunks, and then boil them in hot, salty water. So they're not cooked, so they're still holding their shape, but they are soft on just on the outside. Then drain them and drain them really well. And in the colander, give them a good shake so the edge of the potatoes is nice and rough. And then while they're still warm, I brush them with, put them on a tray, the same tray I'm going to use in the oven. Make sure it's oven and freezer proof. I put them on the tray. I brush them with hot oil. I sprinkle sea salt, and I happen to like rosemary on mine. And I take some rosemary out of one of my shrubs in the front garden, and I sprinkle those on. I then let them cool completely. I then brush them with oil again, and then I put cling film, making sure that the cling film actually is really closely sealed. And then I cling film them again, and then I pop them in the freezer. Now, if you like roast parsnips, it's a family favourite of ours. I do roast carrots, it's one less vegetable to do on the top. Whatever you're roasting, you can do that in advance. It works pretty well. And then I just pop them in a hot oven on Christmas morning, or if I'm having whatever time I'm having dinner, and I just allow an extra 10 minutes in the oven, and they come out beautifully crispy. And I've not been slaving away the day before peeling, although you can peel them the day before or even the day before that. Put them in water, keep them in a cool place. Carrots will keep in the fridge for a few days in water. I prepare my sprouts. The English love sprouts. If you like sprouts or any green vegetable, you can prepare those, put them in a plastic bag, squeeze all the air out of it, tie a knot, pop it in the vegetable drawer. They will last for a few days. So you can help yourself. I also like to cook my turkey the day before because that saves trouble on the Christmas day. We go and see my nephew. He's profoundly disabled and lives in a care home. We go and spend Christmas morning with him. So I don't want to be spending Christmas morning in the kitchen. Everything is prepared. I love stuffings, and there are two particular family favourites. One is chestnut stuffing, the other is a forcemeat stuffing with sage and lots of onion. I prepare those before Christmas. They freeze beautifully. I use oven-proof dishes. They go straight into the oven. I don't have to prepare them on the day. Christmas pudding is done well in advance. So I've got as many things as I can do out of the way. Other hacks, and this is true if you happen to find it difficult to stand, which I do. I have a tray on my lap. I go and prepare my vegetables. I usually do it in front of the telly. I have a towel on the floor with my pot of cold water and my colander, and I prepare the vegetables, and I can do that and I don't get tired. For me, it's all how can I save energy? How can I save time on the days that I've got visitors when I want to be spending time with them? Another thing I would suggest, if you've got people coming for Christmas and you are on your own, many years I've lived on my own, designate somebody else to sort the drinks out. Because if you're trying to do the drinks and you're trying to sort everything else out, it's just too much. Spread the load, get other people to help, get people to lay the table. I would normally lay my table Christmas Eve. Now I've got two 7-month-old kittens who are more destructive than Attila the Hun at times. I won't be laying my table until Christmas Day. In fact, my table is covered with an oilcloth, which will come off, and the cats will be shut into another room while we're having Christmas dinner. I can't quite cope with the thought of them. We don't feed them from the table. That doesn't mean that they don't try and take things from your plate on the table, so they're always shut away when we're eating. If you've got animals, please don't forget them. And remember that there are many, many things around holiday times, foods that are highly toxic to animals. Things like raisins and grapes and chocolate, very toxic to dogs, not great for cats either. If people are buying you flowers and you've got cats, ask them not to buy you lilies. They're very, very poisonous, both the flowers and the leaves. And by the time the animal is showing signs of distress, it's already too late. Their kidneys are wrecked. Again, say to people, you know, I love it when you buy me flowers. Please don't buy me lilies because they are so dangerous to Flossie or Bertie, or in my case, Shaddy and Maisie. Now, I believe that planning a successful Christmas is all about helping others to help yourself. Relationships are really tricky. If you've listened to me before, you know that I believe that the most important relationship we have with anybody is the relationship with ourselves. And if you have a great sense of self-worth, that's a great starting point because you won't allow people to put on you. You won't be the victim. You won't be the doormat. But if you are someone who people pleases and finds it difficult to say no, everything gets exacerbated, exaggerated at Christmas because you want people to have a good time. Very often, by the time the holiday, whichever it is, comes, you're run ragged and tired, and so your tolerance level is probably lower. But I want to talk to you about things like random acts of kindness because that makes you feel good. Random act of kindness is not about bartering. You know, I'll do or give you this if you do something for me. It's about doing something and not expecting anything in return. Now, it's a powerful way to make you feel good. And acts of kindness don't have to cost money. They have cost thought, letting people out. And these are things to do year round. But they're particularly poignant, I think, at Christmas time. Helping somebody to carry their bags from the supermarket or simply opening the door. But at Christmas, there's ample opportunity to take part in schemes that are there to help people who need a hand or need somebody to think about them at Christmas. I'll give you an example. Tony Robbins runs a Christmas basket scheme, and he runs it in many, many countries, and he runs it in the UK. And I was involved in this in London, and we all rocked up the Saturday before Christmas to a school. And I want you to imagine the scene. There were trestle tables the length of the school sports hall. And they'd been doing fundraising all year. And they had baskets and cellophane and ribbons, but they had everything that would make a Christmas dinner. In the UK, traditionally, that's turkey, that's pigs in blankets, which are sausages wrapped in bacon. Incidentally, those freeze in advance, brilliant, much cheaper than buying them from the shop. They had sprouts, carrots, potatoes, Christmas pudding, custard in a packet of ready-made custard or custard powder. They had crackers, they had sweets for the children, a book for the children. And we had a conveyor belt putting these things together, wrapping them beautifully and putting a little message saying, Merry Christmas with love. 2 kisses, nothing more. The names of people had been given by social services, by doctors, by churches, by synagogues, by temples. And then we were all designated to go and deliver these to a variety of people. And I had a bootload of these. And back seat was partially covered, and 3 of us went to go and deliver. The rules were, you knock on the door opens, and you say, is Mr. or Mrs. whoever in, to make sure you got the right house. You handed them over and said, Merry Christmas, and you left. If they tried to pay you, the answer was no, this comes with love. I had always thought that that would be a great thing to do, but my goodness me, the feeling was incredible when you saw the faces of people who didn't think that they were going to be able to manage to afford a Christmas dinner when Christmas dinner was handed to them was just magic. I know that in a couple of weeks that there's a scheme that we're going to be involved in where making parcels up for young people who have just left care, who haven't got families to spoil them at Christmas, who may be spending Christmas on their own, putting together a goodie bag of things for Christmas. Now, I know that spending Christmas on your own can be really daunting, but you don't have to spend it on your own, particularly if you're fit. There are lots of schemes where you can go and volunteer. Schemes where they're bringing the homeless in, for example, to feed them and to give them opportunities. You can volunteer for those, or go and volunteer at a pet sanctuary if you're much more in tune with animals than you are with people. You can choose to be fed up and miserable. That is your choice. Or you can take action to make this Christmas feel very different, or simply have a change of heart, which is, I haven't got to share the remote. I can eat what I want when I want. I'm not going to get out of my pajamas. Ultimately, it's your mindset that's going to make a difference. So if you decide to spend Christmas on your own, rather than spending it from a place of focusing on the lack and loneliness, see it as a personal spa and a personal retreat, and spoil yourself. Plan out your time. Choose to cook and eat all your favourite things. Pamper yourself. Have videos or books you fancy enjoying on hand. It's your mindset. In every case, whether that's with visitors, with just the family, with blended families, on your own, your mindset is what is going to make the difference. Or rather than spend your time, why not, if you've got neighbours that are going to be on their own or friends that are going to be on their own, invite them round. And if money is the issue, say to them, how about we pool our resources? So if you bring the turkey and you bring I'll provide this and you provide that, you can have a fabulous time. And if you want presents, simply by saying, okay, spend no more than, however, could be just a couple of dollars, couple of pounds. Bring something, wrap it up. We're going to put it in to a potluck, and you'll know which is yours, so you won't pick that out, and we will have presents. Another way you can do it is to have stockings, and everybody puts the four people coming, they bring four little things or three little things, not for themselves, and you put it in a stocking and have great fun opening those. It is about you deciding what you're going to do. And it's no good thinking about this on Christmas Eve and then expecting everything to fall into place. If you want a scheme where you're going to volunteer, volunteer now. Get it sorted so that you're not dreading the run up to Christmas thinking, what am I going to do? Making contact with a local home for the elderly or disabled. I know in the home where Jamie, my nephew, lives, there are 6 residents. There are 2 residents who have no family. Now, what we do is we take presents for Jamie, of course, but we take presents for everyone. Fortunately, we could afford it. But it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be something that shows them that you care, so they've got something to open. Or just to spend time, adopt a granny. I bet if you go to your local care home and say, I'm at a loose end on Christmas Day, I'd like to come in and help, many of them would bite your hand off to go and help. Now, there is the potential too to make friends moving forward through your voluntary work. And I know of people who've done volunteer work at Christmas and they've made lifelong friends out of it. When families get together, we want things to go smoothly. But often there are relationships where baggage takes over, whether it's your partner doesn't get on with your parents, or whether it's an aunt or uncle who generally outstay their welcome, or you've got kids who are being difficult and selfish, whatever it is. If you start to anticipate the problem before you get there, you'll be so attuned and so on the lookout. The likelihood is it's going to trigger you in a way that it wouldn't do if you had actually dealt with the baggage beforehand. So during a recent session with a client, he shared how he was absolutely dreading the family get-together because of his sister-in-law. There'd been a huge family bust-up earlier in the year when the sister-in-law had said some nasty things on Facebook about their wedding and the marriage. The wider family then got involved, sides had been taken, and there'd been a really strained atmosphere at a recent family birthday party. When we started the conversation, my client was adamant he was going to ignore the sister-in-law and his brother-in-law because he was angry at the unfairness of the remarks, and he thought he had right on his side and he wouldn't soften until she was apologised. And when I asked how likely is that to be, his response was, well, when hell freezes over. Does that sound familiar to you? When two sides become entirely entrenched with being right, being seen to be right, it's very difficult to find a way out of there. Somebody has to play the grown-up. If you're in similar circumstances, it's worth thinking about things differently, because getting entrenched in our ego and being right, we tend to lose sight of everything else. And often it's when families become estranged that the original issue, actually people forget what that was. When you corner anyone, when you are on the forward foot, I was going to say on the attack, but I don't want to overstate it. When you're the one who is saying that, I need you to apologize, I've got to be right, even if you're not saying it, you're just thinking it, that's the intention, that will come across. When you corner any animal, it's likely to be aggressive. Finding a way that takes people out of that arena, out of that pattern, means that you've got to be prepared to do things differently. So I want to say to you, is it worth asking yourself these questions? What am I gaining by holding on to being right? What am I losing by holding on to being right? What's the message I'm giving my children? How does this line of action act as a role model for them in the future? And then think, what was behind the behaviour of the other person? Because when people are being critical, particularly if they're very critical, it's likely that they're doing it to make themselves feel better. And then if you looked at these things at the end of your life, is it worth being upset or losing contact with my family? And finally, how might I move this forward positively? I would suggest make this the time when you decide to change things for the better. But in order to do that, you've got to create boundaries. And I think many parents have significant expectations of their children, particularly about being good on Christmas Day. Now, as a grown-up child, that's easier when you're single. But as soon as people have partners, there are sets of parents to satisfy as well. So I think if you've got children, remember that they're excited, that the anticipation has been going on for weeks. If you've got in-laws or parents who are critical when your children are boisterous and overexcited, think about how much sugar you are feeding them and how early. Think about how early they're up in the morning. I'm reminded of when I was small. I must have been about, I don't know, 8 or 9. And my sister and I got my baby brother, and he was literally a baby at that time, up and went down and opened the presents. And we saw a light on the road opposite. My parents were fast asleep, probably only just gone to bed. And we knocked on the door to Mr. and Mrs. Baines to wish them happy Christmas. And they said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? And so we were brought home and my mum and dad were woken up and they made the rule. The lounge door was closed. We had a little stocking on the bottom of our bed, but nobody went into the lounge until after breakfast and when my parents said we could go. Put those boundaries in place and make sure that you stick with them. If you've got parents who are critical when your children are being boisterous, or in-laws or aunts and uncles or whoever, remember that emotional blackmail, unfavourable comments from tantrums and sulks, none of those help. At a practical level, it's easy to identify potential solutions. Each one of them requires you to set a boundary, and achieving a successful outcome with as little drama as possible. And some people are addicted to the drama, and if there isn't any, they'll create it. To achieve a successful outcome, it's important that you handle the situation with thought and care. So handle your emotions first. If you're really angry, frustrated, or upset, you're not going to handle it well. This is the time to go out to the back garden, take some deep breaths. We've talked about those 4 breaths in, hold 4 breaths, breathe out for 4, hold 4 breaths. Get yourself sorted. If the children are being over the top, then give them some time out. Say, choose one toy, go up to your bedroom, and you're going to have 10 minutes. We adults need a rest from you. You know what's going to work in your family, but it's up to you to put those things in place. If you enjoy being with the whole extended family, that's great. And if you've got the room and the budget, then super. But if you've got the whole lot coming, then ask them to contribute, not just maybe financially, but by bringing something that's planned. Remember, it's important to pre-plan. Thinking about Christmas, budget's tight this year, so can you bring the Christmas pudding? Can you bring the whatever? There's lots of alternatives. I've done Christmas for the last 5 years. From next year, don't land it on them immediately before Christmas. Could we do a shared approach? You do it one year, I'll do it this year. Some people would like to spend Christmas with just their partner or immediate family, not the extended family. Then have Christmas with them a few days before. But again, please let them know and talk to them well in advance so that they can make alternative arrangements. It is not fair to spring it on them. It's not the arrangement that's the important message, but that you take control. Remember, radical responsibility for you. And do it with grace. I also want to finish with, I think that Christmas is a hugely important time for forgiveness. Forgiving other people, forgiving yourself. Bearing a grudge, a hurt, is like holding on to the poison and expecting the other person to die. It's toxic, but to you. It's like having a chain around your neck that's constantly pulling you back to that hurt and grudge, which gets reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. The perpetrator of the injustice, the hurt, the abuse, well, they've got blithely oblivious to the fact that you're hurting. Forgiving is not about condoning. It's not about forgetting. It is about cutting the chain that keeps you stuck in the past. And Christmas is a great time to forgive. Give yourself that gift. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. And if you've consistently held on to that grudge, the only person who is hurting is you. And that is likely to colour not just Christmas or the holidays, but your life in general. The sad thing is, unless you make the active choice to do something different, those emotional chains will keep you stuck. And forgiveness is the key that unlocks the padlock that holds those chains to you. And remember that forgiving yourself is just as important. We're often harder on ourselves than we are on other people. We want you to become the best version of you. And if you're feeling guilty, if you recognize you've done something wrong, then try and put it right. But if that person is no longer in your life because they live a distance away or because they've died, then set the intention that you forgive them. Write them a letter in a safe way. Take the letter and burn it or bury it. If it's about you and you're feeling guilty, remember, guilt is the lesson that says, don't do it again. And forgive yourself. Authentically, joyously, truly forgive yourself. And remember that many of these things take help. And if you want some help, reach out. I work with clients around the world. And if you'd like to work with me, then email me at gina@genuinely-you.com. If you'd like a copy of my free blueprint, then do the same. Or you can use my radio email, which is ginagardiner@gmail.com. Or you can contact me in LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, but reach out. If you'd like a copy of my free leadership blueprint, and that's about leading yourself, leading others, then just put blueprint in the top of the email. Remember, I'd love to hear from you anyway. I'd like to know how you spend your holidays, whatever the reason. Do let me know what your family traditions are. I'd love to hear. And if you've got lessons that you've learned, share them with me and I can share them with other people. Now, it's too early to wish you happy Christmas. I'll be doing that much later. But happy Christmas preparation, happy holiday preparation. If it's Thanksgiving, you've got just a little while before Thanksgiving, but it's not too late to do some of the things that I've been talking about. Remember to take responsibility for you. You don't have to be a doormat. You're not a slave. It's for you to enjoy Christmas and all of the trimmings and everything that goes with it, as well as everybody else. Sending you my love. I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Bye bye now.